Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Penapple and today I am doing a speed build with the Sims with Disabilities tag. So if you're interested in this build, you can download it off of the gallery. My origin ID is penappleYT. So this is a tag made by Simproved where you design a house that is wheelchair accessible, or I think you could probably do something else that makes something more accessible for a person or a sim who has some sort of disability. And I think this is an amazing tag. Representation is always super important. And I had an absolute blast doing this. And so Colorful Sims tagged me. And I think I will now tag SugarPlumSims, Mila Simmer, Hey Harrie, GavinSims, and DreamlessRose. Of course, you guys don't have to do this, but I just thought I'd tag you anyways because it's fun to tag. Oh my gosh, I feel all awkward now. Oh goodness, I don't want to inconvenience anybody. But yeah, I had so much fun doing this. I have a lot to say, and I probably won't get to say all of it. But basically, I designed this house with a sim who uses a wheelchair in mind. And we can't have sims who use wheelchairs in the game right now, but it would be awesome if in the future we did. So I imagine this sim as being able to use their arms freely. And so that is partially why I added this pool here. And I tried to give it a secondary entrance that maybe might be a little bit more accessible. I don't quite know if this would actually be helpful at all, but I figured it could help. And I also made sure I wanted a ramp both in the front and the back because I really wanted this house to be more accessible. Like I designed this house in mind like as kind of like a house that just from the beginning was meant to be accessible. So hopefully it is. And I tried to make a lot of accommodations. And so I guess I kind of want to talk a little bit about disabilities in The Sims, and that there really aren't any. Other than some like character traits, which that's really not a disability, there just kind of isn't. And I think it'd be amazing if there was. And it would make the game a lot more realistic. And I feel like a lot of people would say, but you know, why? You know, it's just a game, you know, like you don't need that. But in my opinion, like especially with a game like The Sims, which is trying to imitate real life, like it's a simulator. In real life, like people have disabilities, like everybody has something and some people have more than others. And I just think it would be a really amazing step if The Sims were to try to include that in the game. I think some of the other things that you might be able to kind of design would maybe be a house for a sim who is blind or has difficulty with their sight, or a sim who is deaf or is hard of hearing. I didn't design those just because I kind of wanted to stick with the wheelchair theme, but just some ideas in case anyone's interested in doing this yourself. I also wanted to point out real fast that this color scheme was definitely inspired by SugarPlumSims. She did a build a bit back for my 1K challenge, and I just wanted to throw that out there because I was definitely thinking of that. And I used some of the new stuff from the fitness stuff pack, and that I love the green tinted swatch and that. Like I already used it in a different build, but I was just like, I like it too much. The other ones aren't as interesting for me, so I decided to go for those. But this ends up being a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, and it took me about 3.5 to 4 hours to build, so actually pretty fast for me. It's probably because it's only one story. And then it also costs about 100,000 simoleons, which is pretty inexpensive for me. My houses tend to get pretty expensive because of clutter. And in this build, I purposefully tried to make it a little bit more minimalistic, just because I feel like a lot of clutter on the ground would make it hard to maneuver a wheelchair. I also, you might have noticed in the beginning, I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the ramp matched up to the foundation as much as possible, just because there are a lot of ramps out there that aren't actually wheelchair accessible if you look at them, because for something to be wheelchair accessible, there has to be no, like, you really can't have hardly any sort of bump or elevation to it. It has to flow really smoothly, because some people, especially if they don't have motorized chairs, find it really difficult to get over anything that's like more than like an inch or even less than that. So it has to be really smooth. So I tried to keep that in mind. I actually follow a couple of people on YouTube who talk about their disabilities. And so I can't remember which ones I follow right now, but I think I'll link a couple in the description box down below. And I highly recommend that you watch their videos and listen to what they have to say, because it's all really interesting, and I think it's just something that's really important to know. But yeah, here in the living room set, I made sure to have at least 2 of the seating areas I think would have easy transition. And so by that, I mean, I imagine that the sim would pull their wheelchair up next to either the long white sofa or the sort of the smaller one, and they could kind of transfer, which means they would go from the chair to whatever they want to be sitting on or laying on. But I did kind of feel like the entertainment system, I feel like that wouldn't actually be very accessible. So if I were to change something in that build, I think I'd try and make some more room for a wheelchair to fit there, so you could actually get in and like do whatever you needed to do. With the Sims, you don't really have to do any of that, so I think that's probably why I didn't think of it, but you know. And I also do have a rug in there, but I kind of imagine that rug as being in an area where the wheelchair wouldn't necessarily need to go. But yeah, here I am doing the kitchen, which I love how it turned out. I end up using this object that we got in Get to Work, and it's meant to be a display for the stores to put stuff on. But I thought it looked a bit like a workbench almost, and I thought it fit really well with this type of cabinets and countertops. So I stuck that in there, and I just imagined that the sim would roll underneath it and they'd be able to work there. And I tried to make sure both the sinks, you can roll underneath them as well, because that's really important. And so because of that, I could have only used the island type countertops with the overhang, which might have made more sense, but because I had that separate workstation, I decided to go with that. Also, here I'm adding in mirrors, which is actually super important. I only kept it over the oven, but having a mirror there can be really helpful for people in wheelchairs, because they're lower to the ground often, and so they can't see into the pot that's on the oven, because they don't really make wheelchair accessible ovens, so you kind of have to make do. And so by putting a mirror there, it's a safety feature, and so it makes it easier to see into the pot, and so it helps to like avoid like spills and to kind of see what you're doing, see if something's boiling, stuff like that. And so I made sure to add that, because that's just something that's like a super easy thing to add into the game. Yes. But like here, I think I really struggled with the cabinet sort of situation, and I think I kind of maybe gave up a little bit. I went with like an open shelving cabinet, but honestly, like I feel like even most people who don't need a wheelchair, I don't feel like that'd be really accessible. So it's just kind of is, and it's not my best, but some of the other stuff's a bit better. But I made sure to leave an open space at the dining room table for whichever sim is in a wheelchair. They can roll right up there and eat, and it'd be super easy. But yeah, this is also a 2-bedroom home, so there are some spaces in this house that aren't wheelchair accessible. Like I feel like this bedroom that's sort of behind the kitchen, it's not really accessible. Like I think you could get into it, but it's not as accessible as the master bedroom. And so I kind of imagine maybe that'd be like a guest bedroom, or maybe that'd be where like a roommate or a child or something would live, and their bathroom ensuite there isn't wheelchair accessible either. And then there's also a little small sort of powder room bathroom that isn't wheelchair accessible, which I just added for an extra bathroom so you wouldn't have to go through somebody's room. But if you were the sim in a wheelchair, you would need to kind of go all the way across the house, which would be pretty annoying, but yeah. But here, I really love what I did with this entertainment system. Like, it's not accessible, but it looks cute. Yeah, not the best, but I do like how it turned out. I like the sort of free floating cabinets that contain all the imaginary DVDs and whatnot. But yeah, the color scheme in this house is very consistent. It's more consistent than most of my builds, I think, and that's probably because it's a modern build. It's a small build, and I just kind of, because it was designed with a certain person in mind, I felt like the color scheme would be more consistent. Like, I imagine this as being a pretty new build, so I wanted there to be that consistency, because a lot of other times it won't be, and so yeah. Here I am just like babbling about consistency of color systems and whatnot. Oops. But yeah, other than some of the people I follow on YouTube, I'm not super familiar with anybody who uses a wheelchair. Like I have like a couple of acquaintances, but not really in my life. But yeah, so I'm going a little blind. I did try and do some research before I did this build, but other than that, I am kind of so if you use a wheelchair or know somebody who does pretty like closely, please let me know what you think of the build, if you think it'd actually be accessible. I would love to hear that, especially if it could maybe help me to make a better one in the future. That could be good. I wouldn't mind doing another one of these. It was super fun. I did also make sure to put a floor mirror by the door, which may sound like kind of a, like, yeah, whatever sort of thing, but for a lot of people in wheelchairs, again, they're lower to the ground, and so mirrors that people who more frequently stand up, mirrors that they would use, you can't see yourself in it if you're sitting down. And so I made sure to put one where you could see it when you're sitting down, and especially in front of the door, because a lot of entryway sort of mirrors, you know, where you check your appearance really fast before you leave the house, are too high up the ground to see. So I wanted to make sure that that was in there, you know, just like a lot of little things, little specifics. But I got super obsessed with that dresser over there, and I even posted a picture of Twitter, like, just like, this looks really cool, I don't know why, but it does. And it was sort of a teaser, I almost said tweezer, a Twitter teaser, a tweezer for the build. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, I mean, you don't have to, but I do post more stuff about my own personal life. Like, I just started a sock of the day thing where I post a picture of basically my feet. Not every day, I don't think, but on days where I'm wearing particularly cute socks, because I have a lot of them. So if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in sneak peeks for a lot of my builds, and sometimes I'll post surveys about what do you guys want me to build next, that sort of thing, please head over to my Twitter. It's at penappleYT. And yeah, we have fun over there, at least I do. Everyone, like, I mean, I feel like everyone who follows me has to at least hopefully be having fun. I'm kind of wondering if maybe I might lose a couple people with the sock tweets, but I'm only going to do it once a day, and probably not every day, because not all of my socks are cute. Almost all of my socks are colorful, but they're not all cute. Like, some of them are really odd, but I just kind of wear them anyways because I really like colorful socks. But here's the master bedroom, and this one is also an example of a simple layout, but I fell in love with the color scheme. Look at it, it's gorgeous. I love the sort of mint color, and you know, for the color of the walls on the interior, I have a difficult time with that. I feel like it almost looks like more of a blue tone than a green tone, but I actually have found that I am like just like a little bit blue-green colorblind. I think like that, the sort of teal area, that crossover, I have a really hard time sort of discerning green from blue, and I tend to go on the blue side. Like, sometimes I'll even look at certain like shades of leaves and I'll be like, yeah, that kind of actually looks more blue to me. And it's a long running debate that I've had with multiple family members and friends and whatnot. And some people see what I'm seeing, and it's really interesting. Some people are like, yeah, no, I can see that actually looks a bit more blue to me. But other people are like, are you crazy? That is Kermit the Frog green. Like, what is wrong with you? But yeah, so that's just a little tidbit. But here is the wheelchair accessible bathroom, and I made sure to put in a sort of support system. And I thought of adding a shower and putting in a shower seat, but the showers in The Sims are just so small that even if you had a shower seat, I just don't think they'd be really wheelchair accessible. And so I could have tried finding another way, but I thought that a bathtub might be a little bit easier and might make a little bit more sense. It kind of depends. This one might be a little bit hard to get into without more handholds, but in my mind, the sim that is in a wheelchair is able to kind of maneuver to transfer maybe more easily than some people can. Everything really depends on whoever is using the wheelchair, because there are some people who absolutely have to use their wheelchair for any sort of movement, and then there are some people who can actually walk without a wheelchair, but they need it because they either become too fatigued in a short amount of time, or it's painful for them to walk. And so I have seen there can be some prejudice against those people who can walk a little bit or stand up out of their wheelchair, because people then tend to think that they must be like fooling the world or something, you know, like there's just this really weird culture, especially in America, where to get a lot of the accommodations, like you almost have to be like I don't want to put this like in a way that sounds bad, but you have to be very visibly disabled to receive accommodations oftentimes, and that's why people with invisible disabilities is such a huge thing. And you know, some of those people with an invisible disability could benefit from a wheelchair, but they don't necessarily use them because they don't need them all the time. And so like, say you're a younger person and you don't always need a wheelchair, but you go to a grocery store and you feel like it would be too much work to walk that much around. A lot of younger people, especially in the United States, will receive really dirty looks for using that type of like accessibility sort of thing, even though they really do need it. So it's kind of a bummer. Yeah, that's a little bit of a rant. Sorry about that, but it is just it's really interesting to me. And I feel like it is something that a lot of people don't know. I am not physically disabled myself in really any way, but I do technically have an invisible disability. I tend to not really identify that way, but I have anxiety and depression. And when I was in college, I actually did go to my school's disability resource center so that I could get some extra time with tests, because I would get so anxious and I'd be prone to panic attacks and whatnot. And so that was something I chose to do, and it was really helpful. So I don't even pretend to really know what it would be like to need a physical sort of accommodation, but I do know a little bit about accommodations, and it is just not everybody, of course, in the United States, but a lot of people just aren't very understanding of accommodations. And so it's something that I really try to think about. Like, I don't really do anything about it, obviously, but even just something with this tag I think is really great, to sort of, you know, put it out there that there are differences and it's good to provide accommodations and acceptance. But yeah, sorry, it's a little heavy. But here I am doing some flower, what's it called? Ooh, I wrote down flower beds. And so they're raised flower beds. And so I imagine that these would be a lot easier to actually garden in. And I did a test off screen and it worked. But I think that's because I didn't have, you can, if you press like Alt, you can move things off of the grid. They don't snap. And so I think that was my downfall, because when I did it, they were snapped, and so it did actually work. But for this build, I wanted to make sure there was enough space in between the boxes for a wheelchair to fit. And so that meant that these weren't actually usable, but I think you can make them usable. It kind of depends. It's a little iffy. But here I I saw this trick a while ago. MacLeod came up with this trick, as far as I can tell. And she even made a whole little informative video about it. So I will link that down below. Definitely go check that out. And basically you just make your own like little like border. And I just thought this looked really cool, and it helped to make the landscaping look a bit more natural. And so I really enjoyed doing this, and I ended up lining a lot of the paths with it. So I cut out most of that though, because it got super repetitive, and that is where a lot of the time I spent doing a lot of stuff towards the end went with the landscaping. But I do really like how it turned out. It kind of gave it a sort of like Japanese garden type vibe, which I really enjoy. I like how it turned out. I think it looks really cute. Yeah, I feel like I was gonna say something else, but I can't remember. Here, in an ideal world, this ramp would have a railing, of course. It might also be a little less steep, like maybe have more of a switchback. But I instead just wanted to add this sort of more fun sort of architectural element. And since you can't really use the ramp anyways, I thought it'd be just a cute little feature to add. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So, while I'm still, I guess, talking about this, I did one of the things that I do occasionally do, just as a thought, to either just be more observant or just to think about it, I will look at a space that I'm in, like say it's my home, or say it's my favorite restaurant, and I will think about how it would be accessible for somebody who uses a wheelchair or something like that, or even a cane or a walker. And so when I think about it, a lot of the stuff that I do wouldn't be accessible. Like even my apartment, we have, I'm moving soon, but we have an elevator and all of the doors are wider than usual. So that's like 2 checks in favor of being accessible, but it has carpets. So that makes it a lot harder for somebody to get around. And for whatever reason, the trash area would just be impossible to get to because it's 1 step down. And also you have to go in between 2 parked cars, which are really close. And so there'd just be, even if there wasn't that step, there'd be no way to get down. And so like just that 1 step makes a huge difference. Or like my favorite restaurant, is just super crowded. And so you could ask for accommodations, but it's just, I think can be really frustrating to always be having to ask. And in America, we even have laws about making things wheelchair accessible, but they aren't always followed. And when they aren't necessarily followed to a T. You know, it's more of a half-hearted attempt at something that is accessible. But yes, that is just my little parting thought. I would love it if you guys would just spare just a little moment thinking about how your space could or could not be accessible. But yeah, so I hope that this was appropriate. I don't want to offend anybody in this video. But yeah, I had a lot of fun making this. I wouldn't mind doing this again in the future. Definitely let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like me to make more houses like this, or if you would be interested in me trying to make, say, a house for somebody who is deaf or hard of hearing. I have a couple of ideas, but if you have more, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this build. If you did, feel free to give me a like, a comment, or subscribe, especially if you're interested in being notified as to when my next video is. But I hope you guys are all having a really great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!